Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new episode, How to Handle Today's Realities with Ease. Now, today we're going to explore metaphysical science and the view of the realities we find ourselves in, the metaphysical science view of the realities we find ourselves in. Because what we hear from people all the time, and I'm sure you live this in living your life, which is circumstances unfold. You may love those circumstances. You may think that the world is going to hell in a handbasket. And so if that's where you find yourself and you're concerned, well, what's the metaphysical science viewpoint of that? So that's what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to explore that today. Okay. So good. And then I should say we are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. That is our website, https://scientificmetaphysics.org. That's where you can go and find how you can participate, different materials that we have available and whatnot. We are a nonprofit. So to start today, welcome, Betty. How are you today?
Pretty good.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's talk about how to handle today's realities with ease. So let me give you a bunch. And if you have a comment, a question, a reality that you would like us to tackle, you can type that into your comments box and we will take it up. There will be a little bit of a delay, but we welcome all of that in interaction. Okay, so what we're talking about, today's realities. Well, just pick up a newspaper, turn on CNN or MSNBC or whatever your news channel of choice may be, and listen to all of the stuff that you hear. What do you love? What do you hate? What do you say, oh dear, about? What's there? So we've got a lot of things happening right now. Some things that people thought were settled things that were ever going to change. And yet we see them all the time occurring. So what is the metaphysical viewpoint of some of those things? Anything you want to say to kick us off, Betty?
Yeah. Number one, some of these things are just pretty obvious to everyone, but what we have going on around us is defining for us, like feedback, how we're consciously living ourselves. So apparently we're consciously living ourselves with really serious kind of news called a pandemic, serious kind of news like the political picture, serious kind of news like the weather, and on and on and on. And when we look at the television, we look at the newspapers, and we listen to the discussion of what's going on, it's like, what I've heard this week are things like, are we ever going to be back to normal? And what I really want you to see is what do we have keyed up to this word normal? Like, what's normal? And the way I see my daily stuff is my norm. I have the language world around me that is in the form that I can understand. And the form I can understand is the norm for my living. So when I look at the news, what I ask myself are questions like, who am I being that my world treats me this way? Now, that's a quote of something Mrs. Laird said, but literally, who am I being consciously that I have my world looking like it looks, acting like it acts, and having me be the way I be?
Okay, and so, and I know the me that you're talking about, who am I being, the I that you're talking about isn't this. Well, but I want to listen it like it is, in which case when you say, who am I being, I want to make myself wrong. Like, well, if I could just be a different way, then it wouldn't look this way. And that would be a left turn that is not what's being said.
Terrific point. Thank you. And actually what I was saying in that conversation, I was talking about Betty. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that you want to know is that in metaphysical science, the word I is talking about reality. It's talking about divinity. It's talking about perfection. It's not talking about the two-legged Betty and whatever she's got going on. So it sounds like I've got two worlds going on, but what I have is one thing going on seen differently. And when I fuss with the Betty, I'm fussing with the feedback called my world around me, telling me how I'm consciously living.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my study of metaphysics has me know that the Betty is kind of like the piece I have to play the game with. It's not who I am. And I think about that thing Shakespeare said when there's a divinity that shapes our ends. Well, that divinity, that's the being that has Betty show up.
Mm-hmm.
And that being is actually pulling the strings on the puppet. It's
okay,
really,
so I want to bring this down to earth for everybody.
yeah, good.
So here's an example. Okay. And you're going to be I'm just going to raise this stuff up because I know that there's a certain amount of population that's got this going on.
Like,
I would say that some of the recent laws that were passed and upheld by the Supreme Court call into question Roe v. Wade.
mm-hmm.
Settled law, supposedly. Now, you could say, and you see a certain number of posts where there's a war on women going on in Texas with their stuff going on with this.
Yep.
And that if people are really concerned about kids, then they would actually pass laws that would limit rifles and, with huge magazines and all that stuff that would protect our children once they're born, but they're only interested in really controlling women's bodies to protect the unborn child that can't ever vote or say anything back or agree or disagree with them. So that's part of what I've seen on social media. So if that's your world and you're sitting here going, wow, what would give me power in that to live that with ease if I'm looking at it like, wow, I never want to go to Texas, let alone give any businesses from Texas or in Texas any of my business. So I'm just saying that's one possible perspective. Not saying it's my perspective. I'm just saying it's one possible perspective given current events. Now you're going to have exactly the polar opposite where probably a lot of white Christian males are saying, yay, look at what we got passed in Texas. But so I'm just saying to add a little flavor to the conversation. Okay, Lau, I'm going to turn it over to you. Metaphysical science, scientific metaphysics approach or point of view given that.
Thank you for sharing, Kim.
You got it. I just want to I want to bring it into the real brass tacks of current events. Here we go. So what is that? I'm all ears.
Number one, I would say the picture has totally captivated you into your belief that you live and move and have being as Kim.
Yeah. Well, that's what is very enticing, right? And it is with anything. I don't care what you're looking at in the picture of the world. When you get hooked, all of that looks really real.
That's right. Enticing? No.
It does. You get totally sucked into it.
Looking real to you, yes. But an ice cream cone is enticing, but that view of reality doesn't entice me too much. I just get hooked.
Right. Well, there you go. Whatever it is, you get hooked. You think it's real. In other words, you're buying the picture. So, so what is the cause for action? What is the, talk to me about the metaphysical point of view, because I get it. It's not what's causative. And I could say, okay, it's what happened. But walk me through, like, how do I approach that? Should I sit still and go, well, I'm just going to know the truth? Or should I get active and get out there and make a difference? Or how do I know for myself what is my best thing, my best action, my best whatever, given that this is the piece I got on the board? Okay. Where on the board do I put that piece?
Okay. Number one, I would ask myself, what's up? What's really going on? What's so for me? And what's so for me as a student of metaphysics is that stuff, which looks very real and very much like it's in control, doesn't even exist the way I see it. All is infinite mind, infinitely manifest. And that mind is not a human brain function. It's a universal intelligence. It holds the earth in its orbit. It has the galaxies under control, the whole thing. There is one intelligence, not 20,000 million. One. And that intelligence functions perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So that divinity, that being, that existing reality constitutes all that is and all that seems to be. If that's true, then I don't have to buy that picture, no matter how damaging it looks, unless I want to wade through it up to my ears and then have to fish myself out.
Okay. So you don't buy the picture.
Right.
You
So what I
acknowledge.
say is, I don't know why it looks that way,
Yep.
but I know that there is a universal intelligence. It's totally good,
Mm-hmm.
perfect, whole, complete right now,
Yeah.
and functioning right now. So could it be that the picture showing up is a wake-up call that says, Betty, what have you been believing? Have you thought that something like Roe versus Wade was protecting you?
Okay. Good point.
Okay. So then I have to say to myself, if that doesn't stay in place, which it might not, if that doesn't, something else will replace it. And what replaces it is never a retrograde step. It's always something more and better, if I can call it that,
Mm-hmm.
than what I have had up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I am never, ever vulnerable. The being Betty, is not vulnerable to anything unless I say so.
Mm-hmm.
If I buy into that picture and get drawn into it, wrapped up in it,
Sure.
indignant about it, I will have it persist so long as I have that view going on.
Right.
But when I can stand back just a half little hair and say, wait a minute, what's really so here? What's actually going on? Then I can say, oh, well, then I don't know why it looks that way. But I do know that the power and the presence of perfection is what's functioning, having me show up. And if it's a wake up call, okay, got my attention, I'm awake.
Right. Got it. Now, from that same place, so really good input. From that same place, then, being free rather than hooked, being free and going, okay, I get it. All right, got my attention. Now, are there any actions or not actions that are appropriate given metaphysical science viewpoint?
I never know except intuitively from moment to moment.
Okay.
But if something needs to be done, it'll show up.
Okay. So
And
just being.
I don't fight with what shows up. I just look at it and say, well, there's just one intelligence functioning.
Right.
Let's see what this looks like. And if it's another wake-up call, I'll know.
Right. Okay, we did get a comment, and this is a delay, from Deborah. Oh, my malicious mental malpractice out there.
No, there's only one mind.
Mm-hmm.
The mental malpractice is the belief that I'm a two-legged animal in trouble and I have to figure it out.
Which was how I characterized the situation that's currently underway that I put in front of you. So that's what she was reacting to. So that in that case, absolutely 100%, Deborah. And as long as you see that, but then see it with, if I'm completely free and I get it and I go, wow, okay, cool. I get it. You got my attention. Now, whatever comes to me intuitively out of that free space, not out of the hooked space, is absolutely perfect for what there is for me to do. That would be the highest right under the circumstances. Is that true?
Yep. That
okay.
Well, the saying that we've all heard so much, wisdom in human action begins with the highest right under the circumstances.
Yeah.
And thence achieves the absolute. So it may be that that's a step in that direction, humanly speaking.
Right.
But you go with what comes to you.
Okay, so that's the intuitive whatever. So whoever has that, acting from a place of being hooked is reactionary, but acting from a place where you're not hooked, where you're clear of the divinity functioning, and now I got my attention, looking at why does the world need to treat me this way, whatever that whole world is. The intuitive action that comes from that is what we're talking about, having purpose or whatever, that's distinct from the action of just reaction because you're hooked about something. There's a distinction in action there, is what I'm hearing. I can either be hooked and be like how I was, look at what they're trying to do and like that, mental malpractice. Okay. I can either be that way and then look at my actions. Well, I'm going to go do whatever. Right. Mm-hmm. Or I look at it and I think, wow, got my attention. Only divinity functioning here. Oh, I can see something I can do. Yes, I'll go do that. There's a difference in action, is there not? Or are they the same? They just appear differently or occur differently. You get what I'm asking?
Yeah, you're asking me to evaluate human actions.
I'm just saying, coming from a place of being reactivated and thinking the picture, you know what I mean, buying the picture and all that, is there a different quality of action from one versus intuitively getting, the all of it and then intuitively going, okay, that's what there is to do.
Yeah, and the distinction arises out of what you have invested.
Say more about that.
If I'm determined to solve that problem, I'm still hooked. When I can leave it alone and stand with the fact that, this is just a picture of a wake-up call. And then I stay with the facts of being absolutely unconcerned, and I mean unconcerned, with the picture and whatever it has to say. Then I can go with it. My intuition is going to be right on. And the problem, as far as I'm concerned, will be eliminated as troubling to me and the world I walk through.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I loved about Mrs. Eddy's presentation of science, when she says, not only are you blessed, but your world, everyone on whom your thoughts rest, are thereby benefited. And that's true. Mm-hmm. When I can live that fact that there is one intelligence functioning universally, present right now, fully operational, intact, constituting me and the world I walk through, all of it.
Right.
Then I can let go of human opinions about the way it looks. Then I'm free as a breeze and I'll do whatever I do and walk on.
Right.
Unconcerned.
Yep. Okay.
Important.
So the whole idea there is looking at whatever you're confronted with, whatever the look is, and seeing that may be the way it looks, is not the way that it is.
Yep. And that's true whether you're talking about the Roe versus Wade, or whether you're talking about the pandemic, or whether you're talking about the political mishmash that goes on, all the news. I remember one story that Mrs. Laird told about one of the editors of the Christian Science Monitor. And he was somewhere and mentioned he was reading the local paper. And somebody said, I'm surprised that you're not reading the Monitor. He says, no, he said, I read that when I get home, but when I'm out, I read whatever paper's available. And he says, I give a treatment to every single headline. So it's like that.
All right.
If you live self-consciously aware, you've got all of it covered.
Right. So one of the things that we're talking about today for people who are just joining us, if you're liking this conversation, go ahead and say like or thumbs up, whichever works. We also would welcome any comments that you have about this. So we're really looking at how to handle today's realities with ease. So we're in a what seemingly appears as a polarized world for the most part, and different things happening. And so there's things that get people hooked, and there's things that that you look at and you just think, God, where are we going? This is just a mess. And whatever your viewpoint is, how do you live that with ease from the standpoint of science? So that's what we've been tackling in this conversation.
Not an easy thing to tackle either.
No, but we've been exploring it.
Yeah.
So tackle, explore.
Yeah.
So at any rate, we've been divinely processing. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. All right. So if you look at what's another situation, so that was a pretty heated one. I've seen that just out on Facebook and Instagram and all kinds of places where you get that. Which leads me to a whole bunch of conclusions about social media and just not wanting to spend a lot of time out there. But all of that, like the news, you turn on the news, you look at what's happening, you're either totally in agreement with it or you're completely there's no middle ground where it's like, well, that's okay. It's either you're on one side or the other is what I'm seeing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to point out something. So long as you are hooked with the issue, the public issue, so long as you continue to be hooked, it will become a problem in your life, in your experience. When you are free from that, you'll notice a whole different being present for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming from a different space.
Yeah.
So the thing that will happen when you're hooked is it's almost like you're having a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
And you're saying, you're hooked. And something in you is saying, I am not. Look at that. That's just terrible.
Right.
And then it gets a little worse and you say, see, I told you that was going to happen. And
right.
It does. And then it gets a little more severe and it really upsets you and so on. And when you're sufficiently hooked, it shows up as real discomfort, like a disease of some kind, because it's being fed by the beliefs that you're holding about who you are and what's going on. So I have a quote from Mrs. Eddy that I'd like to read here, and it's in Science and Health. And she says, consciousness constructs a better body when faith in matter, this language world we're talking about, has been conquered. So it's the faith in the belief that I'm this picture that I see in the mirror. As long as I'm into that belief, I've got all kinds of stuff going on. Right. And I'm subject to everything that it's subject to. It's the human condition.
Yep.
So when I give up the faith in the belief that I'm this Betty thing I see in the mirror, I give that up and I'm willing to just listen to the being that's present, calling itself Betty, but the being that's present, and leave the other alone. The temptation is to react.
Yeah.
And I just leave it alone. Yep. Absolutely leave it alone. I'm home free.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. All right. So that pretty much is our conversation for today. I would handle any comments that you might have, any questions people have, get those entered in now. And what is the kind of the word that you want to leave people with? What you just said was awesome, but what is it? The whole deal is, we can lead ourselves down the primrose path to suffering and and everything else, when we really buy the picture and get invested in what we believe, is the injustice.
Yeah, well, you know, the old story that, well, we've heard it. I don't know that everybody's heard it, but I think so. But, you know, there was a time back there a few centuries ago when we thought the earth was flat. It dominated the way we lived. We could only travel just so far, and our fear of what we believed prevented us from going any further.
Right.
And it took the time of Columbus before people were willing to go over that edge.
Well, notice he was in the third boat. He had two in front of him. He had two in front of him just in case.
But anyway, that was what, in the 1600s or something?
1492.
Yeah, 1400s. Okay. Yeah. So I've forgotten. But anyway, just think about that. We really believed back then that the earth was flat. Now, was the earth ever flat? No. Did it change because we changed the way we think? No. But we're freer when we live in terms of the facts. And the freedom is what gave birth to this country. So, you know, that's just kind of an example of what we're talking about here. We have beliefs that we really are hooked with, and we don't have to be hooked unless we have to be hooked.
Right. Unless that happens to be your path.
Yep. Unless you prefer that.
All right. Well, very good. Oh, we did get a comment. Awesome. Let me look at it. Okay. Here's a question by Sandy Jackson. Is allowing with non-judgment dropping issue?
Yeah. You allow the picture to look however it looks. It makes no difference however it looks. It's just feedback. It's the past. So if I can see it, feel it, hear it, taste it, touch it, it's in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And allowing that to run me is ridiculous.
Right.
The next instant is freedom if I let that go. So I just leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm examining it closely and deciding to accept it. It's more like, oh, I don't know why it looks that way. The hell with it. And you be yourself, whole and free.
Mm-hmm.
One thing going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Andy.
Very good. Thanks, Sandy. Okay. So just to let you know, we're here on Wednesdays. We will skip next week. So we will not be doing a live stream next week. We have a conflict.
Okay. But we are going to continue this discussion.
Maybe. We'll see.
The week after.
We'll see. Yeah, we have to determine if there's more to say. But at any rate, we're not going to have one next week. So you get a relaxing week, and you can watch all of our live streams are out at our YouTube channel. So you can go out to scientificmetaphysics.org/YouTube, and that'll take you right to our YouTube channel. And if you've not subscribed to it yet, I would invite you to subscribe to the channel, and you can watch all of our past episodes, whichever ones you want. They're all out there for you to peruse.
There are about 50 of them.
There's 62. So there are a lot of different ones you could watch and you could review instead of the live one next week. So head on over to YouTube and give us a subscribe, and then we'll go from there. But then we'll be back in 2 weeks at 7 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Pacific. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much for your participation. And let's go and see that it's all divinity functioning, perfection, shaping our ends. And then we can have some intuitive actions that come out of that freedom. All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Kim.